Thank you again, everyone who's joining us for our webinar on funding opportunities for LiDAR hardware. If you missed my introduction, my name is Jacob. I am a marketing coordinator here at Eagle Point Funding, and I'm excited to share these opportunities to you all. I'm sure you've been looking forward to it as well, so let's get into it. As y'all saw in emails, first we'll just go over a quick overview of federal grants. Then I'll go over some of the upcoming opportunities for LiDAR hardware, and then we'll open the floor up for questions. So if anyone wants to get up for coffee in the middle, you know when to mark your time to do so. So first I'd like to just introduce Eagle Point Funding. For those of you who are unfamiliar with us, we are a grant writing firm operating out of Israel, and we find federal research and development funds for companies doing deep tech research relevant to federal interest. We're part of the FreeMind group, a grant writing firm been around for over 20 years, since 1999. We've won over $1.5 billion in awards and have over 500 active clients. And while Eagle Point specializes in tech industries outside of the life sciences, FreeMind is specializing within the life sciences and through Israel and Europe. Including myself, we have over 100 in-house professionals of grant writers, analysts, and project managers. And to introduce the type of funding we're talking about, federal funding, this funding is what we call non-dilutive. This means that unlike investments made by companies or individuals, this money is without ties, so to speak. It doesn't come with a transfer of equity, board members, or intellectual property rights. This money is awarded in the form of grants and in the form of contracts. So in both of these cases, you're either being funded for research and development or you're being contracted for research and development. And both of those types of funding, you don't lose any equity, and that's why we call it non-dilutive. Another distinction, important distinction to make between dilutive and non-dilutive funding is how it reacts to different climate conditions. So, for example, we're in somewhat of a correction now, and this can mean that investors are hesitant, projected revenues may be lower. You could even be considering cutting into your research and development team. But federal funding, the government does not want you to do any of those things. In fact, they want you to do the opposite. Federal funding is here to support us during market corrections and crises such as the one we find ourselves in now. And that funding is only increasing, not only because the government stands to support us during difficult times, but because there are needs of the governments to address the needs of the people in this time. I'll give you an example. There's a special interest in artificially intelligent chatbots now, because I assume the government would like to communicate with their people effectively on their response to the coronavirus. So there are unique opportunities that arise, especially out of federal funding from conditions like these. And this can be used as an opportunity to come out ahead of the recession where a lot of companies may be suffering. Now, when we talk about federal interest, there's basically 4 categories: defense, cyber, materials, and energy. And under these are a broad range of topics that are relevant to these categories. These are although the federal government funds literally anything, they have open topic opportunities that allow companies to simply present their technology and convince the government why they could be of service. These are the topics of primary interest. These are from across the different agencies you can see the logos of, and these are also some more of the materials. I know it's a long list, but don't worry, send you all copies of the slides, and this information can also be found on our website, eaglepointfunding.com. And if you see what your company is specializing in on this list, I would definitely hope your ears are perking up. Excuse me. Now, a lot of companies have actually gotten their starts in federal funding. Y'all have probably heard of Symantec, Qualcomm, iRobot or 23andMe. All of these companies got their first starts with federal funding for research and development. And some technologies that we even use every day got their starts from federal funding, such as the internet, GPS, and even Siri. So when I say they fund things like you wouldn't believe, they fund things like you wouldn't believe. There's all kinds of interest there. So there's basically two types of federal investments and two reasons the government wants to invest in our economy. The first type is seed money for the private industry. And this is to ensure that we have a strong economy and the best technology. So this is the origin of the America's Seed Fund, the SBIR and STTR programs. If you've heard of these, and if not, I'll go into a little more detail on them later. But the US invests seed money in the private sector for two reasons. One, to improve the quality of life of US citizens, advance our technology and create jobs, to keep our economy strong. And two, because it's better for the US government. A strong economy means a strong country, and strong businesses pay more taxes. In fact, the government has found that for every dollar invested in federal research and development, about $2.30 is made back in taxes. So there's lots of reasons why the government would like to invest seed money into the private sector. Now, the second reason that the government would like to invest, another advantage of working with federal funding is it's somewhat of a hallmark of quality. The Milken Institute found that on investments made by the National Institute of Health, companies that received federal funding for every dollar they received $8 of funding down the road. And this is because federal funding is competitive and it's designed to bring products from, in many cases, to bring products from proof of concept to commercialization. So when investors see that you have won federal funding and have worked through these programs, they understand you've been brought through a certain level of development and it holds a certain level of prestige. Now, the second type of federal investment is solutions for agency challenges. Basically, federal agencies have needs that need to be met, and they like to meet these needs by investing in the products and services of private companies. They do this to support the private economy and to meet their needs. So this has led to the creation of many, many programs specifically designed to onboard private technology and fund private research and development for use by the government. So examples of these are the Department of Homeland Security's Silicon Valley Innovation Program, X-Tech Search, which is a program by the Army, AFWorks, a program by the Navy, and the Defense Innovation Unit. So how does this work? The government will seek solutions to problems, to agency challenges. They make these problems known through opportunities posted for R&D funding, either in SBIR topics or broad agency announcement topics. The government then learns what's out there as a potential solution by seeing who responds to those opportunities. And when they see what the solutions are, they then decide to make an initial investment into the solutions they're considering. So in the case of an SBIR, for example, this is a phase 1 investment. They then see how you perform with that and invite you back to apply for the second level of funding. And this then provides the opportunity to become a service provider or product provider to the federal government. Now, I've mentioned two types of funding here. I'm not going to get into the STTR program because this is specifically for universities, but for the private industry, there exists the SBIR programs and the broad agency announcement programs. Now, the SBIR program is restricted to companies of under 500 employees, of over 51% American ownership, and has a preference for underrepresented founders. Now, this program is the phased program designed to bring products from prototype to commercialization. And although it's only 3% of the federal funding pie, it's still a $3.5 billion slice. So it's a considerable program, and this is a program we see a lot of success with, a lot of good results. The second type of program are broad agency announcements and others. Now, broad agency announcements are, unlike SBIRs, unrestricted, or they're not restricted to companies of any location or ownership or size. So while there's a significantly greater amount of funding, they're a bit more competitive. This is understandable. So the SBIR program I mentioned is a phased program designed to bring products from the proof of concept to commercialization. I said, as I mentioned, it's about a $3.5 billion awarded annually. And these awards are made in phases. So that initial investment is your phase one. This is typically around $150,000 and is designed to be a proof of concept. Companies winning a phase one opportunity are then invited to apply to a phase two prototype stage of between $1 and $2 million. And companies that succeed in the phase two are then brought on for either what they call phase 2B or phase 3 commercialization assistance, which either means winning matched funding from the government, starting at usually around $3 million, or winning a contract to become a product service provider for the government. Now, broad agency announcements, I should make clear, a phase one is usually around 6 months, and a phase two is usually around 2 years. But a broad agency announcement is designed to be a much longer term funding program for longer term, larger research and development projects. This means, of course, that there are higher award ceilings. For example, the largest broad agency announcement we ever, the largest BA award we ever won was around $65 million. And these topics of interest are much less specific than SBIRs. So what can you fund with research and development money won from federal funding? This can be used to pay for the salaries of research and development staff, subcontractors, instruments, materials, F&A costs, advisors, and they usually account, depending on the program, for around a 7% profit. So how this money can be spent is specified in each opportunity and needs to be demonstrated or that needs to be shown to the government in a different way, but they all account for some amount of profit and generally cover these categories of spending. Right on track. Now I'd like to start talking about LiDAR hardware technology, topics of interest for 2020. Without further ado, unless anyone would like to ask any questions now about the federal funding ecosystem, I'll go ahead and get into the second part of our webinar. Let's see. Nothing in the chat yet. I think I'll go ahead and continue then. So, I'd like to talk about some of the upcoming opportunities. I should clarify, not all of them are SBIR. We have a question. One second. Will the slides? Yes, I will forward the slides to everyone after the webinar. So if you need to split, it's no problem at all. Yes, David, if you could put your question in the chat or Q&A. Sorry, I can't unmute participants this moment. Let's see. All right. I'm happy to answer any more questions as they come up. For now, I will continue. So not all the opportunities I'm going over are SBIR topics. Sorry for that error in my slideshow. One of them will be a broad agency announcement. So if you're a company based out of the US, I promise you don't have to leave just yet, but soon we'll go over that opportunity. But these opportunities are out of these four organizations: the Department of Defense, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, the AFRIX program, which is a division of the Air Force, and the National Science Foundation. The first opportunity of our night is the Department of Defense SBIR program. This is a program that actually encompasses AFRIX, but we'll go into that program on its own a little more in detail later. But it covers almost 250 projects, encompasses about 10 offices. One thing I should explain with the SBIR programs is that they often allow for direct to phase 2 programs, as it says here. This means that companies can, if they are already commercialized, skip the phase 1 proof of concept stage and go directly to $1 million to $1.5 million in funding in a phase 2 program. This is something also in the AFRIX program, so we'll go over that then as well. They're looking for, they have interest in over 23 different areas of technology. Winning a Department of Defense SBIR can mean a contract with the military starting at $150,000 and going on to $1 million. And the direct to phase 2 award for this program is $750,000. So this includes the Air Force, Army, Navy, USACOM, National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, and more. And these topics will become open as of May 6th. So we'll be able to go into even more detail about them soon. Let's see. So here's an example of a Department of Defense SBIR topic. The Navy was looking for a high dynamic range, real-time LiDAR digitizer and processor. Now, if you weren't here for the very beginning of our webinar, I hope I made it clear that I am a marketing coordinator. So if you have specific questions about the opportunities and what they mean, I may not be able to answer them for you, but I will be happy to bring them onto our development team and clarify them for you. The second topic is from the Department of Defense Broad Agency announcement. This is actually through the Army Engineer Research and Development Center, or the ERDC. And they were looking for a novel photon counting, LiDAR software and hardware development. Their objective to investigate into new methods of collecting and processing photon counting point cloud data through novel signal and image processing techniques. And as I mentioned, this is a broad agency announcement topic. So companies inside the US over 500 employees or outside of the US of any size would be welcome to apply for this. The National Geospatial Intelligence Agency has a wide variety of opportunities available, including data analytics and visualization, computer vision, earth modeling, and business intelligence data-driven production. I saw a specific opportunity for LiDAR hardware in the recent release by this agency. I can add that to our follow-up. I'd like to talk now about the AFRIX program I mentioned earlier. This is a SBIR open topic program, so any company is invited to apply. And unlike other SBIR programs, this is accelerated. It's designed to cut through kind of government red tape and get funding soon, usually within 2 months. And like a lot of those other SBIR programs, this AFRIX SBIR offers commercialization assistance starting at $3 million. So we talked a little bit about direct to phase 2 versus a traditional path. So in a normal SBIR program, and in the first track, the AFRIX program, you would apply for your phase 1. This is a 3-month program in terms of AFRIX, like I said, a little accelerated. And then you would apply for your phase 2 up to $1.5 million with the option of a follow-on contract afterwards. Now, track 2 allows you to go directly into phase 2, apply directly for $1.5 million funding, but this requires an MOU. This is a memorandum of understanding, and this is basically a document from an Air Force stakeholder specifying the commercialization of your product. And with this document, you're allowed to apply directly to the direct to phase 2 program. And these opportunities will be opening up May 6th. Focus areas of AFWorks relating to LiDAR. One is development of a small pitch Geiger mode avalanche photodiode detector arrays for multifunction LiDAR receivers. Wow, that was a mouthful. This is a specific AFWorks focus area into LiDAR. I mentioned we have good results with SBIR. We've had even better results with the AFWorks program. In 2019, we made 10 submissions to the AFRIX program, 2 of which were direct to phase 2 and both won. 6 out of those 8 were phase 1 submissions, and this gives us an 80% success rate with the AFRIX program overall, just slightly over our overall success rate of 65%. The National Science Foundation had a recent topic for microfluidic LiDAR for autonomous vehicles. For this, they're funding $900,000, and a submission deadline starts in June 5th and closes in September. So if this is something that would be relevant to you, now would be a great time to have a conversation with us about it. I'd just like to tell you a little more about some of the companies that won with us through the AFRIX program, actually. One was an AI-powered facial recognition company that won a phase 1 of $50,000, and then after receiving their MOU, applied for their phase 2. So hopefully we'll hear back. That went well. Second was a drone-based data management software company. And the third was a smart wearable fabrics and sensors company. Both of these were applied to direct phase 2 programs, and both won $750,000. A little bit more about Eagle Point funding before I let us close it off for question and answer. We typically start with a call with our clients a day to 3 days after signing an agreement to start moving towards those opportunities as quickly as possible. First grant submission usually requires about 60 to 80 hours on your side, just so we can really get an understanding of your technology and your team and create a compelling story for you. But after that, every submission is only about 10 hours, because once we have a lot of that information, it becomes a lot less work for you. And this allows us to hit our goal of applying to 5 to 10 grant applications throughout the year. And that's how we get such a high success rate. Now, I think I've said what I have to say about the programs and Eagle Point funding. I'm happy to open up the floor again to questions and answers. And once again, I will forward the slides to everyone after our webinar, so you can get this information once we're through. But anything that I could answer for you now, I'm happy to take. You're also welcome to direct questions, concerns to my Director of Business Development, Ari Farhan. At the top is a link to his personal calendar, which you're more than welcome to set a time with him, send him an email,